Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's session, Social Studies CPR, Masterclass in Reviving Social Studies Curriculum, Teaching History from a New Perspective by Connecting to Community. I'll do a brief introduction of myself and Erin Conklin, and we'll talk a little bit about the K-12 leadership survey, some of the results from a survey that we launched to the market back in December. There's some interesting findings there. We're going to talk a little bit about personalization and customization as a result of the respondents from that survey. I'll even talk a little bit about 2022 predictions from Anthony Kim, the founder of Education Elements. And then at that point, I will turn it over to Erin Conklin, the K-12 Social Studies Supervisor in Duval County Public Schools. And then we'll bring it home with just a little bit of information about Xanadu, kind of connect the dots for you here. And then we'll open things up for Q&A. And with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So your hosts are Erin Conklin. Again, she's the K-12 Social Studies Supervisor in Duval County Public Schools, Florida. And I am Chris Poza, the Marketing Director for our K-12 Business Unit here at Xanadu. And so I want to start us off by briefly sharing results from a very recent K-12 Leader Pulse survey from Education Elements and ourselves here at Xanadu. We conducted a national poll of education leaders in December 2021 to understand what was top of mind as they looked ahead to 2022 and planned for the upcoming school year. More than 200 educators across 40 states responded to the survey, sharing their top concerns as well as strategies for overcoming those challenges. The majority of respondents included campus administrators and district leaders. Some teachers responded to our survey as well. We wanted to stay really focused on the leadership, but they being teachers, represent about 8% of respondents. And from the survey, the three most urgent issues facing our respondents: number one, climate and culture of their district and or schools, staff retention, and learning loss. And a couple things I think I'll point out here. One is, notice over to the right there, COVID rates actually ranked cumulatively 7th based on our respondents. So kind of gives you an idea here of really what has shifted probably over the last 18 months, coming up on 2 years now, really, in terms of what's most important and what's top of mind for our district leaders. Some of that, I would say, things like the climate and culture of the district, even learning loss, a result likely of, to some extent, COVID-19. The other thing I point out, I think, your employee retention. This kind of backs up a survey that I saw Teachers Pay Teachers push out in November, I believe it was, of last year. And 6,000 teachers indicated at that time, or they surveyed 6,000 teachers, 50% of those 6,000 indicated that they had considered leaving the profession altogether in the previous 30 days. So pretty alarming, and I think what you see here with employee retention on our survey ranking second, it makes a lot of sense. It kind of backs up what we heard from Teachers Pay Teachers. So you're probably wondering why I'm sharing this data when we are here to talk about teaching history from a new perspective. The answer is that the survey further dived into those high-ranking areas, including learning loss. We asked respondents how they're planning on overcoming some of these challenges, and our survey confirmed that districts are looking for ways to engage students by making shifts towards personalized learning and customized curriculum. And we see this response in part because communities are asking for more alignment really to their values, how they want to experience school, experience instructional content, and how they want to engage, again, particularly in light of the last 18 months. And when asked what efforts districts have undertaken or are considering to better serve and support their students, their parents, and their teachers, respondents reported as follows. The majority are currently pursuing some degree of customization. More than 60% report that they are currently engaged in efforts to customize their curriculum, and 59% report current work to supplement curriculum. Even among those who aren't actively pursuing it, interest is high. More than 28% are interested or considering some degree. And I'll stop there just for a second and let you know that this full report is available in white paper form, and you can find that on our site. And as an attendee, we'll of course make this available to you within a day or two of the conclusion of this webinar. So just want to level set and make sure you'll get the full report. Lastly, in terms of customization, Anthony Kim, again, I mentioned he's the founder and chief learning officer with Education Elements, and if you're not familiar with them, they're a trusted partner and consultant to over, I think it's 1,000 schools nationwide. And each year, he does something fun. He releases his top 5 predictions. He does it in January for the coming year. And one of his predictions for this year speaks to customization. And you can see that highlighted here on your screen, and I'll read it just in case it's a little difficult or you're having trouble seeing it. Communities and school boards are divided on many levels. Through all this change, individual families are demanding customization based on their specific needs and interests. There's outrage when one approach is provided for curriculum or instructional programming. Fixed curriculum or static textbooks will not satisfy the diverse needs of communities. And this is really a trend I think we've been seeing for quite some time with what Chicago Public Schools is doing with their ELA curriculum, and of course Duval County Public Schools that you are about to hear from. His full predictions for 2022 are also available on our website, and I'll say that he prefaces this year's predictions with a quick revisit to last year's, and I think you'll find it's pretty uncanny how accurate he was. And so that's where Xanadu comes in. And in a nutshell, what we do here is we help educators, whether at the state or district level, address curriculum gaps to deliver relevant, meaningful learning experiences through customized content and supplemental resources. And that's what we did with Duval County Public Schools, specifically in support of their African American Studies course. And what we do here in terms of customized curriculum materials applies not just to social studies. Really important to keep that in mind. You're going to hear a social studies story, but this also applies to ELA, where we have also done a lot of work. It applies to world languages. It applies to science or even math. The principle is the same, and I think you'll see that as Erin now shares her story. And with that, I'm going to turn the keys over to Erin. Take it away, Erin.
All right. Excited to be here and share our story of customization with moving our African American history course forward in Duval County Public School District. So as Chris said, I'm the supervisor for K-12 social studies here in Duval County, which is located in Jacksonville, Florida. We're in the northeast part of the state, and we are considered the 20th largest school district in the nation. I took this position in July of 2020, and at that time, as we all know, our biggest concern in our school districts were just getting students back into the school buildings during a pandemic. But the problem became that I didn't know as a social studies supervisor that, with current events and political motivations, that all of a sudden we wouldn't be worrying so much about getting students in a building, but what are we teaching our students and what is going to be the focus? So in Florida, we do have a state statute that requires the teaching of African and African American history in all curriculums. It was originally passed in 1994 and then has been amended throughout several years. Our district has offered an African American history elective for at least about 10 years. The problem has been it's been an elective. As many of you, if you're in curriculum, you understand electives aren't treated the same. And we started getting some inquiries of what we were teaching in that class and what resources and textbooks. Also in the state of Florida, we do have a state African American history task force, and this task force recognizes districts for their strides and dedication to meet the requirements for implementing African and African American history, and they award districts with statuses on how they are incorporating and meeting those requirements. We were up for renewal that year, so I had a lot on my plate trying to, talk with not only our school board but community members, but also the task force, and what we were implementing with this course and what we were doing throughout our other courses as well. So after talking with several of our students and trying to figure out how we were going to move forward with our African American history course, I found that many of our students were unhappy with the elective, that they weren't given a chance to take it. Only certain students were put into it. We even had 2 schools that had a walkout where the students walked out because they were not given an opportunity to learn more about African American culture and history. So we began to do some community meetings, some student roundtables, and talking with students about what they wanted. And that's where we kind of focused on our course that we had. We needed to make sure that we revamped the course. And the first step we kind of did was seeing where we could place this course. An easy fix was we found out that there was an honors course, and we were able to recommend that for our honors path students and have them begin to take it. Also, we do pair this with either a semester of Vietnam or Holocaust studies, so it's usually a semester course. So we began to fix the actual course and then who was taking this course. The only thing that began to be a problem was we did not have a textbook. And as I said before, with all the current events that were beginning to take place in 2021, we had a lot of community and school board members and district leaders as well that were trying to figure out and wanted more information on what we were actually using for this course. So we began to kind of dig in and look for more. Also, our superintendent really wanted a textbook for this course. So as I stated earlier, I did sit down and talk with students, and we surveyed classes. Our students wanted to focus more on local history. They didn't want to focus on Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X. They really wanted to dig in and learn more about what's happening in our city and our state. Of course, we do not have a dedicated textbook. We did post resources for teachers to use, but nothing solid for them. We had, as a curriculum director, I receive many textbooks from publishing companies that we could use. However, as I began to look through them, they were either on the collegiate level or they would have just a little one-pager on Florida. They wouldn't have all the information that was needed or that we wanted to focus on. So it became kind of a intimidating, kind of a problem for us, a little roadblock. The other thing that I quickly found out too is that there are some organizations, political organizations, that do back certain companies and certain textbook companies. So therefore, it made it very hard for me to use those materials as well. So I had a very difficult time trying to come up with something that I knew our board would want to approve, but also that our students would want to see in their class. So this is when I kind of started coming up with that idea of customization. I wanted something that our teachers and students could use and learn about local history, and I wanted students to form their own perspectives and learn from the voices of our past. I wanted to bring out that local and state history for our students, and I wanted some of the resources that they would not see every day. I wanted them to find out about those unsung heroes of African American history. I wanted them to find out what took place in our city locally, or even not far from here, maybe in Central Florida. I really wanted, as I told the group as I was working with Xanadu, I wanted them to go to like the bottom of the Smithsonian, down into the very basement, to the very bottom drawer, and pull out something that no one had ever seen before. That was what I really wanted. I wanted just a book that was not just where students would sit down and read from it. We've seen that many times when we go into classrooms. You give a teacher a textbook, sometimes they hand it out to students, and students just read from it. They're not learning anything. I wanted them to look at firsthand accounts. I had heard of Xanadu from another supervisor, and so I decided to reach out and say kind of, hey, what can you guys do for me? And it didn't take long before I had a meeting with the project managers and the team. I will tell you, I was very nervous that creating a customized book was going to be a very expensive endeavor, and that my direct report, our chief academic officer, and our deputy superintendent would tell me no way. However, after discussing the price points and looking through everything, I ended up with a far better deal than going out and purchasing a textbook and things like that. I even have both print and digital copies. So kind of off I went in creating my very special customized book just for our district. So kind of how the process went, it was really easy. We had our initial Zoom meeting, and I explained my vision to the team of group that was working with me. After sharing my vision, I can honestly tell you that I think the team was more excited about the project than I was. They were ready to get started then and there, and I had to be careful because I wanted to make sure everything was good and would be set up for our superintendent. I shared with them our scope and sequence, how I wanted the book to be set up. They have so many options. There was tons of frameworks that I could choose from. And then the best thing was they worked around my schedule. They set up all the due dates and check-ins when would fit in my schedule, and it's a very packed schedule. We also discussed how many items we wanted in the book, like where I wanted more local and state. So I knew there were units where I really wanted to focus in on those units and those with local and state history, and not so much national history. I love that they use the term assets. So all of the primary, secondary sources, as a social studies person, they call them assets. So I was able to add more assets. And as we said, it kind of gives it a different connotation. So when you're talking with a board member or with a district leader, I'm able to say, well, that asset, and they don't think, kind of gives them a positive, like the CIA is jumping through the door and helping our two students out. Once we had the idea of what each unit topics and how many assets were going to be in there, then they started sending me all of the information. It was a great outline. They had a chart that contained links to all the assets. And then I was able just to sit and review each one of them and then tell them, yes, I like that one, or no, I don't want that one. Oh, I've seen that before. And then I was able just to kind of make sure that it was exactly what I wanted and what I wanted for our students. If there was anything I didn't like, they would send it back quickly with a replacement. I never had to worry about waiting extra time. One thing that I did say as we began to start putting the book more together was that was a non-negotiable was our state standards. I really wanted those to be linked to the assets in the front of every single unit. We also had a table of contents and a little description in the front. One of my favorite things is that we're all busy in our educational world, and this team really brought out some of those extra things that I wasn't thinking about, but then you begin to start going, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? So as they started adding in some of these little fun extras. This is kind of showing you. The first thing is these QR codes. So what high school student doesn't want to pull out their phone and watch a little 5-minute video? I think 3 to 5 minutes on each, because we know that there's no more attention after that on the Kingsley Plantation. This Kingsley Plantation is actually located here in Jacksonville. The little symbol of the Florida symbol kind of shows the teachers and the students exactly that this is local or state history. So there's no having to figure out which one or where it is. The other thing is in the front of the unit, they have also added these great vocabulary terms or vocabulary words. So then that way students and teachers are able to know we've got to focus on those as we begin to go through all of the different assets. Some other fun extras that we have, I love these. In the front are the leader spotlights. So they have taken for each unit of time period and found a leader to talk about. And the best thing is there's not a lot of information. There's maybe 2 or 3 sentences, and you're going to see what our students have to say about it in the last slide, where they're able to really, kind of get an interest in it and then go out. One of my favorite things are the timelines. This was something I did not even think about, and I was very thankful that the team did think about it, because that timeline provides a visual reference for our students about what they're talking about. So you can see that this page right here goes with the unit that talks about slavery and the Civil War. So the students can see everything that's happening on a visual representation. And that's at the end of each one of our units in the book. And it just makes it a very clear display of what will be taking place. And as I said earlier, I wanted things that couldn't be found. I wanted stuff that was going to focus on our local history, get students interested, and not be found very easily on that first page of Google. So with Axe Handle Saturday, that's right here, you can see that there again is that little Florida symbol, which represents that it's something that happened here. And this actually did happen here in Jacksonville. And during this time period, it was not on the news. Axe Handle Saturday was not written about in our local news. It wasn't in our newspapers. It wasn't anywhere. So the team really had to go out and find this article. And I will tell you, at first we were very unsure about putting this in here because it does have some bias. But then we just decided, you know what, students need to read about it. There's not a lot of information out there, not until recently. So we really wanted to make sure that students had that opportunity to learn about what took place here. And it was great because our teachers were saying, we do have Rodney Hurst, who participated in Axe Handle Saturday, and he comes to some of our professional developments and talks, and so they're able to make that connection and bring back more. We also paired up assets, so we have a nice grouping of assets where there's 2 that can be compared and contrast. So teachers can work with the different assets. There might be a reading on the Black codes in Florida, and there might be then a letter from the governor discussing those Black codes. So the students will be able to see what it says in the Constitution and then a letter comparing those. We also were great because we have, also is good because we have a lot of professors and historians that did help us. We had a professor that heard about this book, and he decided he would let us use his entire manuscript to put in here on the Rosewood Massacre. So it was really, great that we got that information. And so they were able to, Xanadu was able to handle all the copyrights and reach out to everyone. So I didn't have to worry about trying to do that, in my spare time. And it was wonderful to hear from these historians that they were very interested in the project we were putting together. Now, of course, we did have some bumps in the road. I want to say, like, in the middle of this, or no, right before we were almost done, I did get a call very late at night from our deputy superintendent and then our chief academic officer asking about what was specifically in this book. Because literally the night before, there had been a lot of discussion on critical race theory. And all of a sudden our board members, not all of them, some of them, began asking and wanting to know what was in there. And they wanted to see a breakdown of the book and the breakdown of the assets to make sure that that critical race theory was not being taught in our schools. I was very, very nervous. It was like, oh my gosh, we're almost done. Like, this cannot be happening. I'm thankful because Xanadu really stepped up. They provided a breakdown. Like, I told them at 8 o'clock in the morning, before lunchtime, I had a breakdown of who was working on the book, the type of assets that were going to be in there, how they were coming from different sources. They gave me a list of the historians and researchers that were working on the project to show that they were coming from a diverse background as well. And then they were able to provide a digital copy of the book so that our board could look through it. And we were able to show that this was a resource book full of primary and secondary sources, and that students would be performing or gathering their own interpretations of what's taking place in history, and it was not us telling them what took place. So it was very nice to have that ease of, okay, now everybody is good. They've seen the book, they're happy, so it made it a lot easier. So even with everything that happened, we get to the book. So this is the cover. And I can tell you, when I got that first box in my office, I was so excited. I think I carried around books for days because I just was so proud of everything that had happened, and it was in there. Soon the boxes started getting delivered. We had a principals meeting right before school started, and I showed them the book. They were so excited that when their boxes weren't arriving at their schools, they became so like enraged that they didn't receive them first. I would get phone calls all day long of, our books aren't here, because they were ready to get them tagged and put into the classrooms. Also, we do a lot of walkthroughs in our schools, and the district administration team, when they began doing their walkthroughs, they started seeing the books and being out and used in a lot of the classes. The best part is our district administration started seeing the importance of this elective course as not only a support for our U.S. history course, but a support for our students and bringing in their background knowledge. And so it became part of our walkthrough tool that when they walked into an African American class, they looked for this book. So it was great that finally we had, interest in social studies. So we do have 2 middle schools that are piloting our African American History high school course, and it's been great. They're really enjoying it. This is one of our middle school teachers here, and she has really taken off using this book. And so she actually decided, to hold a professional development as one of ours, and she shared how she uses the book in our class. And so here's just some quotes that our teachers have said about the book. And then our students have also had a great time with it. They're starting to see, they have something, still my favorite quote is that first one, like, turn to page 79. It's talking about La Villa. We pass that neighborhood all the time. They're able to actually see their local history, and they know when they're driving around Jacksonville where they are and things that have happened.
Erin, there's a really good quote there in the middle of that third one that reads, all the readings are firsthand accounts, and then I start researching more and more. I love that. I think that's what this is all about. It's incredibly challenging to really inspire kids these days. We cram a lot of stuff down their throats these days, and here we have an example of someone who actually says, I want to go learn more.
Correct. And it's been great because, we just started Black History Month today,
Hmm.
and we have a contest going on in our district, and our 9th through 12th graders are very excited because they are using people they've learned about in the book, like from those leadership spotlights, from some of the other assets that are in there. And they are doing their projects on those people instead of focusing on our predominant figures in African American history. So it's been great because I feel that we have now sparked a new interest in it. I already have, the contest doesn't end until February 18th or 25th, and we already have 73 submissions. And I was looking over them, exactly what that is. They are looking at firsthand accounts and then researching more.
Erin, before I jump back in, I did get a couple of questions. Do you have a minute? We can go ahead and take those now.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one's just real easy. How many students are taking that African American Studies elective course currently?
So currently it's a semester course. So we just started our second semester, and we have 2,530 something students taking it, which we've seen with this year and our reorganization and having the resource. We have seen about a 45% increase in our enrollment in that elective course.
Well, that's a good segue into the next question. Do you think this is inspiring more kids to take this? And it sounds like that's a definitive yes.
Yes. And we even do a summer writing institute for 3 weeks, and students focus on our local history. And we already have started taking applications for it. And one of the, a couple students have written on their application that because of the book and learning some more places they didn't know about, they wanted to do the summer institute. So we have seniors that are giving up 3 weeks of their summer to participate in this.
Oh, fabulous. I did get another one, if that's okay. We can keep going. Okay. The question is, so you've had this book now, is there anything looking back you would maybe, like second thought, would like to put in there? Is there anything you missed or?
Yes. So I'm constantly working and thinking of the next phase. So I'm actually working with Xanadu on a second edition. One thing is we did not have a teacher's edition with this book. I assumed that handing teachers, because a lot of teachers want creativity, they want to, not have the district tell them what to do. I just assumed they would pick up the book and take off running with it. Here's a bunch of documents, document-based questions came to mind. But there was no teacher edition because there aren't any questions in there. So now we're creating a teacher's edition, and then we're also adding in some essential questions with this second edition, and then also some project-based learning to help teachers use the book more efficiently.
And that's for the upcoming, that would be for the 22-23 school year then, I assume.
Yes.
Fair enough. Okay. Okay, no more questions at this point. I think if it's all right, I'll kind of take us home.
Yeah.
With just a little bit more about Xanadu. Okay. So, Lessonlist is our portfolio of products and services that help enhance your classroom materials, as you have heard Erin talk about. It's quick and easy customization at any scale. From Lessonlist Create, a do-it-yourself library of supplemental classroom-ready content, which is coming soon, a little bit later this year, to Lessonlist Custom, client-driven projects led by our curriculum team. We help districts fill their gaps, left by traditional textbooks and/or new mandates. Good example is perhaps a new unit requirement for students to learn Asian American history. That is happening or was just announced in Illinois last year, I believe. Address their district level goals and initiatives. A lot of districts looking at making sure they have more culturally responsive materials that are reflective of the community and student population. All sorts of studies there about academic achievement when that kind of reflection is present in learning materials. And then really just talking about personalizing learning, making it more relevant and meaningful for the students. And then Erin's example, integrating state and local history is a really great way to do that. What we are talking about with Lessonlist Custom is creating materials specifically for you and your students that supplement usually your existing curricula. All the content is decided upon by you, which means you are also in control of the quality and ultimately the cost of your materials. And we've got a team of instructional designers and curriculum specialists, project managers that will deliver exactly what you want, as you have heard Erin speak to. And then a product that I mentioned just a moment ago is coming soon. It's called Lessonlist Create, and it combines high quality, curated content with tools that enable educators to augment and customize existing lessons to better meet the needs of their district, school, or even the classroom. Educators will love being able to select vetted content and instantly build ebooks or print workbooks locally, all with a few simple clicks. And then just a couple of examples of other custom partners. So 6 years ago, the state of Louisiana rewrote their entire ELA curriculum, the whole thing, virtually from scratch for all K-12 students. And since then, we've been a key partner with them, handling the clearance of materials usage, think copyright, especially for unique content like plays and poems and short stories, essays, book excerpts, items like that, as well as all of the production and manufacturing of unit readers and student handouts, continuous learning guidebook companions, which were developed to address remote learning. And then staying in Florida, we have also worked with Pinellas County Schools to support their Spanish language program, specifically levels 1, 2, and 3, and they had undergone a recent adoption. And the department leader there did not feel the approved materials really were going to meet her students' needs, nor were they aligned to the new teaching strategies she was rolling out. So we worked with her to customize an off-the-shelf existing solution to produce precisely what she wanted for her students and her staff. We procured some hard-to-find resources like song lyrics and poems, managed the copyright of that content, and again, all the production and manufacturing, which can, as you imagine, be a tremendous burden or lift for many of our customers. That's it for us. If there are no additional questions. Oh, Erin, so I think this is for you. And that question is, did the team at any point consult with local community members to develop the resources? That's a really good question.
Yes, they did. They worked with our local colleges and universities to find, as they began digging into these resources. And as I said, as we're putting together our second edition here, we definitely are working with some more of our local communities. We're hoping to have a unit or some assets on the Gullah Geechee community as well.
And with that, we will call it a day. You see Erin's contact information. It's conklins@duvalschools.org. And I am C. Posa, P as in Paul, O-S-A, @xanadu.com. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.